Welcome everyone. Just wait a couple of minutes for some more people to arrive. We'll be getting started in just a minute. Welcome to our panel, everyone. Today we have John Sadiq here to talk to us about mindful working. At any time during our conversation, you can ask a question or share your experience. Feel free to raise your hand and that will let you talk via audio and let you unmute yourself. Or you can type a question into the Q&A box or use the chat box, which will let you join in the discussion with other attendees. And if you're joining us via YouTube, if you can download the app, Meditation.live, that will let you join in the conversation there too. Welcome, John.
Hi, Kat. How are you doing? Hello, everybody. It's lovely to be here with you.
And we've got a great topic today. So I thought it would be good, rather than discussing what it means to work consciously, what does it mean to work unconsciously, in your opinion, John?
God, that's a great question, isn't it? So maybe everybody who's here joining us as well, maybe kind of have a reflection on that. Maybe think about when you've worked unconsciously, or when you catch yourself working unconsciously in the situation that you're in. It's funny, just because before we started, we were already kind of talking about our subject, and there's so many areas of this that we could bring to, because again, I think sometimes when we talk about working, we have this idea that all work is office-based or whatever, but it can be actually any form of work at all. And just kind of reflecting on what I see on a daily basis in the people who are around me. This is not judgmental, it's just observation of kind of being unconscious in the way that people work. A lot of people bring a kind of firefighting attitude to work, as it were. And it's not just that they bring that attitude, it's within the culture of their workplace as well. So that it's just literally running from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, all pretty much at the same level. And it's kind of reactive. And what I would say that conscious working is one, knowing why you're there, both for yourself and the purpose of the business, which may be just more than making money. Hopefully it is. There are other elements to work too. And not only knowing why you're there, but actually putting first things first when you are there, and meeting it from that deeper dimension of being, so that you actually bring something of yourself to it. I think if we just brought those three things in, I think the work situation would be a lot better for many people.
Yeah, that sounds like it. And I feel like a lot of this comes down to making decisions about how we do things. So, for example, for me, a big thing is like just checking emails when I don't really need to be checking emails, just because I think there's a conditioned response there to sort of, it's maybe there's a dopamine hit or something like that. I don't know if you know much about the brain science there, but a conscious decision I can make around that is saying, I'm only going to check emails between these times, or if there's like a particular reason, rather than just going unconscious about it and just letting my instincts take over. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Well, I would say it's probably that we're out of our instincts and that we're just into kind of almost like a kind of reactive cycle. So that kind of going round and round in a loop of things. And of course, that indicates that we're kind of not grounded in our own being. So I think it's more about kind of taking a proactive approach, because I don't know about anybody else. And again, just add this into your reflection, and please sort of offer your experience or question, or, say a little something in the chat box at any time. When I try to make decisions about something, they often just slip out of my head really quickly. I'll make a firm decision, very clear, firm decision, and then 10 seconds later, it's gone again. So I think it's more about kind of almost kind of working with a kind of deeper level of proactivity of what we're kind of actually there for. So in a way, it kind of goes back to that remembering our purpose for being there, and kind of being congruent with ourselves as kind of why we're doing this. I think work needs to evolve quite a lot at the moment. The work world needs to evolve because it's such a major part of our lives. But actually, a lot of the time, the work model is a kind of buying of our human lifetime in blocks for the smallest amount possible, like being on hourly contracts or 0-hour contracts, and kind of almost just being kind of at the service of somebody else's advancement, and they get the things that are meant to be for all, So I think we need to bring a lot more thought to work at the moment, and a lot more heart and a lot more soul as well to the working world.
And do you think meditation can help with this? I mean, I'm just kind of thinking about somebody who's in a position where, they have to be working, they have to feed themselves, they have to feed their family, and maybe they don't have a job that they're very satisfied in. But in those moments, despite that, can meditation be something that helps them?
If used in the right way. I mean, I think if the feeling is that we meditate to kind of anesthetize ourselves to the negative conditions that we're in, and in a way we just, we continue to tolerate 16-hour work days, or like the Amazon model or something like that. But hey, some guy's got 150 billion, so it's okay. But actually doesn't contribute to the world in any way, very much. This top-down thing just isn't working. It's just not working at all. And for that person who is kind of in the middle of that somewhere, or on the kind of the end of it, then meditation as part of taking care of yourself, as part of a kind of a holistic taking care of oneself, but it would have to be matched with making sure that you eat good food, getting time in nature, actually spending time with people that you love, having some reflective practice and reflective time, learning what real relaxation is. And what that person would probably find, and I found this happening myself in the past when I've worked more conventional jobs, is that the kind of that wholeness of oneself kind of brightens up the space that you're in, and actually gives a lot of help to people around you. But at the same time, you actually start rising up through the ranks because you are whole, so you actually have more choices in what it is that you can do. But if you're on the reactive side of that, you tend to kind of stay sort of down at the bottom end. But if you don't, as you rise up, if you don't change the situation as you go, or make changes for other people as you go, again, it's just kind of, light going into a prison, but nothing coming out. So I think it's quite an interesting time we're in.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of potential there for us.
I think there is for every single person. I think nobody should ever think that they can't do anything. I have seen, I won't mention any names. I had this writing commission years and years ago, and this massive organization. One day the janitor was off ill, and it brought the entire place to a standstill because nobody in the upper ranks would clean the loos or do any of the jobs that needed doing. So the whole place is kind of held on the kind of the people doing kind of like the more menial jobs a lot of the time.
So I wonder if we can have a little brief practice.
Yeah.
Something that maybe we could do during our workday.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just as we were kind of, as I was thinking about this session for today, I thought, well, it's that move, that being grounded in the self, that's the most important thing. That seeing that everything is your life, your work life is not separate from your life. and it's that sense of wholeness that we need to kind of bring to things. So if we allow ourselves just to settle, and that's is wherever you are, and just feel your feet against the floor, your weight against the seat. If you're in a position to close your eyes and you feel like doing so, then do so. But it's okay to keep your eyes open and just look a few feet ahead of you. Lower your eyes a little bit, perhaps. And we'll just take 2 or 3 breaths in and just let them out naturally. So breath coming in, up the legs, up the hips, up the spine, up to your heart, and just going out on its own. Up the legs, up the spine, up to your heart and filling you, and out naturally. And in your own time, up your legs, hips, heart, filling, and letting go. And just being aware of yourself wherever you are in this moment. Just noticing how your mind is, how your feelings are, how your body feels, what your breath is telling you. Are you comfortable where you are and in this moment? Or are you out on the edge of yourself somewhere or into something else? And we're not going to try and force our mind or our emotions or ourself to move into anything. We're just going to notice our own state and try to do so without judgment or criticism, perhaps just noticing the energy of our state rather than getting tangled about it. And just noticing that place in you that is noticing. Allowing yourself to rest into that place. Stepping back almost from being in the tangle of things into the clear space that is within yourself. And when you're ready, because you haven't gone anywhere, perhaps you're even more here now than you were before, simply open your eyes and be back with us.
I love that, the idea of being even more here than we were before. It's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah, well, most people aren't where they think they are.
Yeah.
Really, they're usually eating lunch at 10 o'clock in the morning, already, or, thinking about their car or the football or something, or somewhere else, or with somebody else,
Yep, in the past or in the future.
Yeah, past or future, that's where people tend to live, not here.
So let's say somebody is having difficulties with somebody in the workplace. I'm just wondering, John, what's your advice for being a bit more conscious about how we communicate with other people and how meditation might assist with that?
It's interesting because, as always, I'm never going to go the straightforward way with anything. One question that we never ask ourselves, individually or as countries, is it me? Is it me causing this? Am I the bad guy here, or am I the one causing the problem? And if I'm not saying that it is, but it also has to be part of our thought process. So it depends kind of what's going on around us. So us having a problem with somebody may actually be us being a problem, for one thing, but not necessarily so. But it is just really worth kind of looking at that as well. And I would always just say, bring some reflection to things. Whatever's going on, reflective practice is the best thing, because if we look into our own energetics, into our own feeling, and we're having a problem with somebody, then you're going to notice a sort of wall, a push against that person in some way. They're coming, oh, it's them. Or something like that will move through us. There'll be some movement through us. And if we just meet things on that, well, then we react back to that feeling. That's us reacting against something within ourselves. It's got nothing to do necessarily with the other person. The other person may be doing something that we are reacting to, but there are two people within this, not one. And it's, so I think the first thing to do is to kind of bring some reflection to that, maybe journaling or meditating about it, or just taking some time back and perhaps trying to sort of feel, when you feel that layer of reaction, see if you can feel the deeper layer of that within you and see where that is in your body, where that's coming from. There's always a second layer to emotion. And it's that place that will tell you really what's going on, much more than that top reactive layer. Because we can be reactive about all sorts of things, and especially if we're just having a particular kind of day. So it's always about dropping down to that deeper place within ourselves and then bringing some reflection to that. And then, of course, you take the steps that you can. So if you have genuinely moved into a kind of a more present place within yourself, you'll be more able to speak with that person if that's necessary, or take whatever step that you need to take. I used to work in prisons. I think I've spoke about this before, and it's a very, very reactive environment, especially amongst the prison staff, the officers and things. I worked in a different capacity within the prison, and I just learned to always say good morning to people, and actually mean it, and hello and how are you, and take a bit of time with people. And it's quite amazing what actually, the kind of the oil, the kind of viscosity, I'm trying to think of a word, whatever it is that oils the wheels, is actually kind of, just pleasant communication sometimes, and just kind of being decent in yourself, never mind what anybody else is doing. I'll only be decent if they are. I think, us turning up can change a lot of things.
Yeah, it's remembering that everyone's another person. And this is kind of why I love the metta, or the loving kindness practice. And I sometimes really feel sorry for people like in call centers or customer service, who sometimes, we've got a problem and we might forget that the person at the other end is a human. And I feel like meditation has been really helpful with that for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's always good to kind of think there's a person there, really.
And like you said about not being reactive, this seems to be what everything is coming back to. It's not letting ourselves just react, but taking this breath between, or maybe longer than a breath, but even in that pause, realizing that we do have a choice.
Yeah, I would say that you can't avoid being reactive, but what you can do is you can notice when reactivity is there, rather, so instead of walking on eggshells all the time and making yourself insane, if you feel reactivity coming up, then feel that energy of reactivity in you. And then something in you and your emotional layer is causing that, in the deeper emotional layer. So then you bring some love and attention to that. Then you're actually healing yourself to boot, and creating new neuroplasticity in the brain and in the oh, my brain's not working today, in the kind of in our wiring, so that we actually have responsivity more available to us than reactivity. Respondability, I think Stephen Covey calls it in the 7 Habits.
It's a great word.
Yeah.
I'm just curious about, you talk about this kind of second layer, and I'm just wondering, as we're sort of wrapping up here, and unless anyone has any other questions or comments to add, is there a particular process that you take yourself through when you're trying to get to that deeper level?
I think the answer is yes, but I'm trying to actually figure out what it is, because it's not on a mental level. You see, we meet emotion on a mental level, we get reactivity. Emotion is at the emotional level, And most people don't feel their emotions. What most people meet is their mental reaction in fear of their emotion, you know? So what I actually mean is meet your emotions at the level of the emotion. Actually, that's it. So there's no magic
Ah,
about it. It's kind of uh, your emotions are not what you think they are, basically. They're not. Our emotions are not what we think we are. We think one thing, but actually our emotion does something else. Every single person I know, everyone here will have actually come across that. You think it's like this, and it actually turns out to be completely different. You know?
and, and do you mean in a feeling sense? Because the fact that when we try to like maybe label an emotion, we get it wrong. Is that what you mean? I'm just clarifying.
Well, the mind trying to interpret our emotions is not going to work because the mind is a very, very small part. The bit that we think is our mind, anyway, is a very, very small part of our consciousness. Probably only, 5 or 6% of our consciousness, if that, even. And then there's everything else. The field, the electrical field. I'm not even talking spirituality here or sacredness. The electrical field around the heart is 60 times greater than the electrical field around the brain. You know, it's huge, extending out hugely. And we're communicating through all of this all of the time, and our senses and everything. And so we're very well aware, but we've been trained only to kind of believe in a certain part. And that's all that's given any kind of credence. And so we end up kind of making terrible mistakes. I'm sure every single person has been absolutely convinced they've been in love with somebody at some point, and then when you actually get with that person or whatever happens, you get that, oh, it's not what I thought it was at all sort of feeling. I'm sure everybody's done this one. Well, I'll put my hand up anyway. you know that's kind of what I mean. The kind of the conditioning of the mind will convince us of all sorts and trigger certain kinds of reactive and attachment based feeling. But deeper down than that, there's actually kind of the feeling of being and the self, and that's a different order. That's more responsive and more whatever. But we can't just sort of say I'm not going to have these other feelings anymore. We can only just keep learning about awareness, and awareness will kind of slowly kind of give us a torch to light up our path.
Oh, John, that's great. I'm really glad we ended on that. I feel like we could, again, as always, go down that rabbit hole as well.
It's
But
incredible, really, how far we go on these things.
and yeah, just to say thank you. If anyone has any final things to say, but I think we're just about
We're
out of
very
time
quiet
today.
today. Yeah, very quiet today.
Just absorbing the words of wisdom. So, John, if you would like to wrap up for the day.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I'm going to do my usual thing because it's become my little thing now. It's to read you what it says on my cup, not on my cup, but on my tea bag tag. Love yourself so that you may know how to live with self-respect. There we go. I think we'll just let that go in for a second. And so, just to close, just coming back to that sense of your more total self. So, just feeling that energy within yourself that is you, rather than the me voice of the head. Allowing the me voice of the head to be there, but feeling that deeper underlying sense of self. And notice the depth of that. It's so incredible and beautiful and wonderful. You have all this depth that you are. And you're not just a shallow little bit of brain. And just allowing that wholeness to kind of permeate through every aspect of yourself, allowing yourself to see whatever it is that you have to do today as part of your life. And so instead of rejecting it, meeting it with love and kindness and awareness. Whatever it is that you bring yourself to, may it be with presence and kindness. And so we'll just bring things to a close here. I want to say thank you for practicing with me today, and thank you for joining us on Meditation Live and on YouTube today, which is different. We're used to saying a different word in that little bit there at the moment, but thank you for joining us on YouTube as well. I'm back on tomorrow, and I think we're talking about cultivating gratitude. So that'll be a lovely time. So I hope to see some of you then. Namaste. Have a beautiful day.